more entertaining. But I came prepared because I knew it was going to go that way. Floyd Mayweather, who I think is probably one of the most scientifically advanced boxers of all time, probably the greatest defensive fighter that I've ever seen, other than technically, excuse me, let me go first. Other than Pernell Whitaker, who just wasn't available to be hit. But from a technique standpoint, I felt like Pernell relied a lot on his. This could be a whole nother show topic for another day, but that's not where I'm going now. I think Pernell kind of relied on his reflexes more, upper body movement, whereas Mayweather, he has a myriad of things that he uses staying out of range, his footwork, the high guard at times, a drop jab. But Floyd Mayweather believes that he's the greatest fighter of all time, and he only puts Ali number 4 on his list, and one of the reasons he uses that is that Muhammad Ali. Listen, do we give Ali too much? He said that Muhammad Ali lost to a fighter that only won 8 fights in
the Leon Spinks fight.
And when Muhammad Ali was 38, he was washed up against Larry Holmes, Trevor Berbick in 1981, who almost thought Ali won that fight because maybe Berbick wasn't trying to hit him that hard or something like that. But when Mayweather was 38, he was still dominant. What do you think about Floyd Mayweather's point? Do you think that Floyd Mayweather has the right to feel that he's the GOAT?
I'll let you go this time first.
Yeah, I'll go first on this one. Yes, I think he has the right to feel that he's the GOAT. I mean, you have to kind of have that mentality to even be in this sport.
I agree with that.
But I will say that I think, to your first point, his career actually kind of followed Ali's if you really look at it. I mean, because early in Floyd's career, he was, he used his legs a lot. He used a lot of movement. He didn't get hit a lot. Once he got older and his legs started to go, that's when he really started to rely more on his defense. And that's when he started to sit in the pocket and be elusive right there in the pocket. It's kind of the same way Ali did. When his body and his skills started to fail, he used his mental IQ in boxing to supplement that and get his wins. So, I mean, he's talking about somebody that really his career actually followed, if you ask me.
Yeah, he made a debate that his Ali and Roy Jones were the same fighter. Their defense was their legs. And when their legs went, they couldn't defend anymore. Whereas Floyd, he believes that he has a greater level of defensive efficiency.
No, you couldn't.
Go ahead, my brother.
No, I've seen Ali roll punches on the ropes. You watched the George Foreman fight.
Of course.
As hard as George hit, there were some clean shots because you're going to get hit, laying on the ropes. But most of them punches, he's leaning back, he's rolling them, like right there at the right time. He's rolling, he's pulling his head in, taking his strength away. Ali was doing a lot of different things, when not using his legs. You've seen him do it against other, many fighters. You seen him do other things than just use his legs. He always, could move his chin right at that split second. He always had that, because what's being said, you rarely seen Ali until it was the very end. Get hit by a combination, and that's always the telltale sign. You can always catch a fighter clean, maybe one good shot, and they got a chin. They can take it, like Floyd when Madonna hit him, and
Shane Mosley,
and what's my man?
Corley caught him. Yeah,
Corley had his head rigged, but you never catch him with 2-3 shots. You didn't even see that. You didn't even see that. I'm interjecting Bernard in the conversation to the end with Corley, with Kovalev and Joe Smith. Even when Pascal or somebody else hit him, you couldn't hit him with a combination. So I watched Floyd do these interviews, and he's like,
"Oh, the guy paused out on us." He was making a good point. Go ahead, continue, James.
You brought up the same thing I was going to bring. I was going to bring up the rope-a-dope in the Foreman fight, and Ali had a lot of defensive skills. And a lot of people don't even know the Ali shuffle was actually a defensive move.
And then with that fight, he showed it. He didn't have the legs. He just kept jabbing him. Every time he got close, he tied him up. So he had more than Roy had. And, after he lost his legs, he had a lot of different things he could, like you said, a myriad of things to come up with.
It's funny you bring up the George Foreman fight. I know the people in my father's generation, when they experienced that in real time, it was like unbelievable that Ali beat Foreman. But every time I've watched the fight, I thought Ali won most of the rounds. I thought from the beginning he was popping him with the jab and leaning off with the right hand and getting out of range. I was like,
I had at least even.
6-2 or something like that.
I had at least even because the before we could watch these fights in YouTube and entirely, later on before YouTube it was ESPN Classics. They would show
Right.
or ABC Classics. You get the whole fight, but I would read about it in Ali's books, and they made it seem like Ali was just getting pounded for 6 rounds. But I'm watching this fight, and I'm like, no, he's catching him. He's catching him. He's pulling him behind his head. He's doing, I had to fight even until Ali said, he's gassed. I got him.
That's enough. So no one believes that Floyd Mayweather I believe that Floyd Mayweather has the right to believe that about himself.
Oh, of course, if I was 50-0, I would say the same thing.
He did the work. I think he believes that because of the stances that Ali took, because Ali was a political figure that was similar even to a Malcolm X, so just as important. Ali was important in that era, in the 60s. So I think Floyd Mayweather is trying to separate that. But just boxing, and he thinks that just boxing, he thinks he's the best ever in terms of his skill set. And I see the smirk on James.
But I do separate the two, because I hear people try to do that with LeBron and Jordan. Like, no, you're not going to do that. We know LeBron does his great philanthropism, but we're talking about what we see on the court. However you call it, we call it in the court. I don't give Ali extra points because what he did outside the ring. What he did outside the ring, I give you extra points iconically as
a human being.
Like to me, he's Black Superman.
Yeah,
that's
one of the top 100 greatest human beings to ever walk the earth, in Kareem Ali's opinion.
But put that on the fact that he was the greatest. Like, he legitimately won 3 heavyweight titles, twice against 6-1 and 7-1 odds. Come on, man.
When the heavyweight championship meant something, when it was one heavyweight championship, the most important title in the world, he won it then.
When they were bigger than basketball and football players.
Much bigger. Much bigger. So you think Floyd Mayweather should sit his ass down, is what you guys are saying?
No. I think we all agree that at 50-0, you're going to say it.
Right.
I'm not going to. For me, I just don't. I always when he first started going TBE, I was like, okay, if he was in the 80s, could he went from 135 beating Duran, 140 beating Pryor, 147 beating Leonard, and 154 beating Hearns and remain undefeated? I don't see it. But I think he will compete. He will compete.
He competed in the era for sure. What do you say, James?
I think the other thing I heard a interview he did when he started the whole TBE thing, and he actually mentioned Ali, and he said Ali kept saying he was the greatest, and all of a sudden everybody calls him the greatest, which is why he started doing the whole TBE thing, and he said, because I am the best ever. And I'm like, I see where you're going with that, but just because you say something over and over again doesn't necessarily make it true. I think he's one of the greatest fighters of all times. I don't know if he is the greatest fighter of all times. I think he's definitely in the discussion.
So I have to stand here today as what I was when I was born, a black man.
Your racism bounces off me, I'm bulletproof. Your prejudice gets deflected, I'm bulletproof.